Hello, everyone, and welcome to another story that will make you question everything you think you know about family. My name is Victoria Murphy. I'm 36 years old, a former IRS auditor who used to spend my days uncovering hidden truths in numbers and paperwork. But nothing prepared me for the truth that hit me harder than any audit ever could. A few weeks after a serious car accident that left me with severe injuries to my legs and back, leaving me temporarily in a wheelchair, I still insisted on attending my younger sister's wedding. I pushed through the pain, the exhaustion, the stares from strangers because family is supposed to be there for each other. Right? The ceremony was held right here, at our family mansion in Newport, Rhode Island, the same house that has stood as our legacy for generations. I arrived hoping for warmth, for a moment of joy, for someone to say, "I'm glad you're here, sis." Instead, as I wheeled myself down the aisle, my sister Elena looked right at me and said loud enough for the guests to hear, "Do you really think this is the right place to show up? In your condition?" The words landed like a slap. But what hurt more was seeing my parents, Thomas and Patricia, standing just feet away. They didn't defend me. They didn't even look me in the eye. They just lowered their heads as if I were a stranger who had wandered in off the street. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply took out my phone, sent one single message to an old friend from the IRS, and waited. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a reply that changed everything. It wasn't an accident. If you've ever been humiliated by the people who are supposed to love you the most right when you needed them, drop a comment below. 1, if you'd forgive for the sake of blood, or 2, if you'd choose to protect yourself first. And tell me where you're watching from. Let's get into the story. The reception wrapped up faster than I expected. Guests trickled out in small groups, their laughter fading into the evening air as cars pulled away down the long driveway. I waited until the last few people disappeared, before wheeling myself toward the east wing, the part of the house that had always been mine, the quiet corner with the small study and the bedroom overlooking the garden. The wheels of my chair rolled smoothly over the polished hardwood floors, but every bump reminded me how fragile my body still felt. Inside the house was quieter than it should have been. The staff had already cleared most of the tables, but traces of the celebration lingered: empty champagne flutes on side tables, a few scattered petals from the floral arrangements. I paused in the hallway leading to my room and noticed something off immediately. The door to my study was not quite closed. I always left it ajar just enough to let light in during the day, but tonight it was pushed almost shut, as if someone had tried to make it look untouched. I pushed the door open slowly. Nothing appeared obviously wrong at first glance. The books were still lined up on the shelves, the desk lamp was off, but the stack of property documents I kept in the bottom drawer had been moved. Not much, just half an inch to the left, but enough for someone who knew exactly where everything belonged. My pulse quickened. I hadn't touched those papers in weeks. Someone had been in here. I locked the door behind me and wheeled over to the desk. Opening the drawer confirmed it, the folder containing the original deed to the mansion and the trust documents my parents had set up years ago was slightly askew. Nothing missing, but definitely handled. My mind raced back to the past few months. After the accident, Elena and Justin had moved in temporarily to help. At first, it felt like a kindness meals brought to my room, someone around when the physical therapist came. But kindness has a way of shifting when no one is watching. They started small. Justin would suggest turning down the thermostat because the house is too big to heat for one person. Elena would rearrange the kitchen cabinets to make things easier for you. My parents, who used to call me every Sunday just to chat, began phoning Elena instead. "She knows what you need better right now," Mom would say, when I asked why they hadn't checked in. Dad would nod along, his usual quiet agreement now feeling like avoidance. I pulled out the small notebook I kept hidden under a stack of old tax forms and started writing. Date, time, what I noticed. The folder moved. The way Justin always seemed to know exactly when I was resting. The conversations I overheard late at night. Low voices from the living room, Elena saying things like, "We have to think about what's best for everyone." I wrote it all down not because I had proof yet, but because putting it on paper made it real, made it harder to dismiss as paranoia. That night I couldn't sleep. The mansion felt too large, too empty despite the extra people under its roof. I wheeled to the window and stared out at the dark lawn sloping toward the bay. This house had been in our family for generations, built by my great-grandfather, when Newport was still a quiet summer escape for old money. My parents had promised it would stay that way, a legacy for all of us. But lately, every conversation circled back to practical decisions and future planning. Elena would smile sweetly and say, "We're just trying to help, sis." Justin would add, "You don't need the stress right now." I closed the notebook and locked it away. Tomorrow I would be more careful. Tomorrow I would watch closer. Because if someone had been in my study, if someone had touched those papers, then the insult at the wedding wasn't just cruelty. It was the beginning of something much colder. The next morning I woke early. The house was still quiet. I wheeled into the kitchen and found Justin already there making coffee. He smiled when he saw me, the same practiced smile he used at the wedding. "Morning, Victoria. Sleep okay?" I nodded. "Fine, thanks." He poured a cup and set it on the table in front of me. "Black, no sugar. Just how you like it." I thanked him and waited until he left the room before pouring the coffee down the sink. I wasn't taking any chances. Not anymore. Over the following days, the pattern became clearer. Elena would drop by my room with magazines or tea, always asking casual questions about the house. "Do you ever think about selling part of the land? It's so much to maintain." Justin would mention contractors who could update things. My parents would sit quietly, nodding along their eyes, never quite meeting mine. I kept writing in the notebook. Every small shift, every comment that felt rehearsed. Every time the study door was left open when I knew I'd closed it. The isolation wasn't loud or dramatic. It was slow, steady, like water wearing down stone. And the more I noticed, the more I realized the real question wasn't why they had insulted me at the wedding. The real question was what they had planned long before that day. I started locking my study door every time I left the room. I moved the most important documents to a hidden safe behind a bookshelf panel my father had installed years ago for valuables. I changed my passwords on everything digital. Small steps, quiet steps, but necessary ones. Because if the accident wasn't random, if the papers had been touched, then someone in this house wasn't waiting for me to get better. They were waiting for me to disappear. And I wasn't going to make it easy for them. The unease didn't arrive all at once. It settled in quietly like fog rolling off the bay. I started noticing small things that didn't add up. My thoughts would drift mid-sentence, words I knew perfectly well, slipping away for a second or two before returning. My hands trembled slightly when I reached for my morning coffee, the same cup Justin placed on the kitchen table every day with a casual, "Here you go, something to help with the recovery." I thanked him each time, took a sip to be polite, then set it aside when he left the room. After a few mornings like that, I decided to test it. I stopped drinking the coffee he prepared. I switched to water from the tap in my bathroom, poured my own from the kettle in the kitchen when no one was watching. Within 2 days, the fog lifted noticeably. My mind sharpened. The tremor in my fingers eased. I still felt the ache from the accident, but the mental haze, that strange creeping slowness, was fading. That small experiment changed everything. I began watching them more carefully. Elena and Justin had developed a routine. Late in the evening, when they thought the house was asleep, they would sit in the living room with the lights low. Their voices carried just enough for me to catch fragments from the hallway if I positioned my chair quietly near the door. Elena would ask my parents about my condition. "How does she seem today?" she'd say softly. Still a little confused, Justin would chime in, always the same tone of concern. "She's not herself." Managing a property this size requires clarity. We have to be realistic. My parents rarely contradicted them. Mom would sigh and say, "She's been through so much." Dad would add, "We just want what's best." Their words sounded tired, almost rehearsed, as if they had heard the same argument so many times they no longer questioned it. One night I heard Elena say something that stopped me cold. Remember what she said before the accident? "If something happens to me, the house goes to whoever can handle it." Justin laughed quietly. She won't remember saying that now. I wheeled back to my room, heart pounding. I remembered that conversation. It had been months ago, casual dinner talk. My sister had teased me about my long hours at the IRS, about how I never took time off. "If you don't slow down, someone else will end up running things," she'd joked. I had laughed it off, saying, "If something happens to me, the house goes to whoever can handle it. Probably you, little sis." It was a throwaway line. Now it felt like evidence. The next morning, I pulled out my old medical files, the discharge papers from the hospital, the neurologist's notes. I read them line by line. The symptoms they described after the crash were physical pain, limited mobility, fatigue from trauma. Nothing about cognitive fog. Nothing about memory slips or hand tremors. Yet here I was experiencing exactly those things until I stopped drinking Justin's coffee. I started keeping samples. Every time he left a cup on the table, I poured a small amount into a clean glass vial I'd taken from the bathroom cabinet. I labeled them with dates and stored them in the back of my closet. I also began recording conversations, nothing dramatic, just setting my phone to voice memo whenever I heard footsteps approaching the living room at night. The snippets were short, but they built a picture concern that sounded too polished, suggestions that always circled back to my ability to manage things, gentle reminders to my parents that we need to plan for the future. I kept everything hidden: the vials, the recordings, the notes I now wrote in code, simple abbreviations. So even if someone found the notebook, it wouldn't make immediate sense. I moved carefully around the house, pretending to be more tired than I was letting them see what they wanted to see: a sister still recovering, still vulnerable. But inside, the doubt had turned into certainty. The insult at the wedding hadn't been spontaneous. It had been deliberate. A test. A way to see how far they could push before anyone pushed back. And they didn't know I had already started pushing. I couldn't keep waiting for answers to fall into my lap. The next step had to be deliberate. I waited until the house was quiet. My parents had gone to bed early. Elena and Justin were out for the evening, and wheeled myself into the small sitting room off the hallway. The signal was stronger there, away from the thick walls of my bedroom. I opened my laptop, connected to a secure VPN I'd set up months ago for work, and dialed Ruth using an encrypted app. She answered on the second ring. "Victoria. Everything all right?" I kept my voice low. "I need you to look at something for me. Independently. No official channels yet." I explained the samples I'd collected, the small amounts of coffee poured into vials, and told her about the symptoms that vanished when I stopped drinking what Justin prepared. I didn't accuse anyone outright. I just said I needed an outside opinion. Ruth was quiet for a moment. "Send what you have. But I'm going to need more than one sample to say anything definitive, and I need time. This isn't something I can rush." I agreed. I scanned the vials with my phone camera, took close-ups of the labels I'd written, and sent them through the secure link. After the files uploaded, I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a while, listening to the house settle around me. While I waited for Ruth, I decided to dig into Justin's business myself. I still had access to some IRS databases from my time there, old credentials that hadn't been fully revoked because my retirement paperwork was still processing. It wasn't strictly legal to use them for personal matters, but I told myself this was self-defense. I logged in through a private browser, masked my IP, and searched for the company name Rivera Construction LLC. The public filings came up quickly. Revenue reported in the high six figures for the past 2 years. Profits listed as zero. Not small losses, zero. Exactly zero. In my years auditing, I'd seen numbers manipulated before, but this was too clean. Too perfect. I dug deeper. Registered agent address, the mansion in Newport. My address. No consent form, no discussion, no paperwork with my signature. That alone was a violation. Using someone else's property as a business address without permission opens the door to mail fraud if creditors or the IRS start sending notices there. It also shields the real owner from personal liability while debts pile up. The debt listings were worse. Multiple liens from subcontractors, unpaid suppliers, a bank line of credit maxed out and past due. The company was hemorrhaging money, yet on paper it looked solvent. I saved screenshots, copied the EIN, and cross-checked with state business records. Everything pointed to the same pattern: inflate revenue, hide expenses, route liabilities through the LLC, and use my home as the front door to keep creditors at bay. My hands were shaking, not from any drug this time, but from anger. This wasn't just opportunism. This was calculated. They had been planning to use the house as a shield long before the wedding, long before the accident. Ruth called back 2 days later. Her voice was careful. The substance in the sample is a low-dose benzodiazepine derivative. It's not street-level stuff, pharmaceutical grade. The concentration is calibrated to cause mild cognitive impairment over time, memory lapses slowed, processing difficulty, concentrating. Enough to make someone appear unreliable without knocking them out completely. It's temporary if stopped, but consistent use can build a convincing picture of decline. I asked the obvious question: how long would it take to create that picture? 2 to 3 months of steady dosing, she said. Long enough for family to notice, long enough for a doctor to document it, long enough for a guardianship petition if someone pushes. I thanked her and ended the call. My mind raced through the implications. The goal wasn't to kill me, it was to erase me slowly, make me look incompetent, convince my parents that I couldn't manage the estate anymore. Then quietly transfer control, first through power of attorney, then perhaps through sale or refinance, while I was too foggy to fight back. I had to be smarter. I couldn't confront them yet. I needed more. I started pretending to be more affected than I was. I let my responses lag a second longer in conversations. I asked my parents to repeat things I'd heard perfectly well. I left the coffee cup untouched in plain sight, watching Justin's reaction when he cleared it later. He didn't seem surprised. He seemed satisfied. I moved my laptop to a locked drawer in my closet and used it only when the house was empty or when they were distracted. I backed up every screenshot to an encrypted drive I kept hidden. I documented dates and times of every interaction that felt staged. The realization settled in heavy but clear. The plan was to make me disappear without ever laying a hand on me again. They wanted the house. They wanted control. And they were willing to turn my own family against me to get it. But I was no longer the person they thought I was. I had spent years finding patterns in chaos. Now I was building my own. I knew confrontation would only make them careful. The smart move was to let them think they were winning. So I began playing a different game, one where I fed them exactly what they wanted to see, but on my terms. I started with small mistakes. When Justin brought over a stack of repair invoices for the roof work done last year, I signed them without reading, then accidentally dated 3 months in the future. He noticed immediately. His eyes narrowed for half a second before he smiled and said, "No problem, I'll fix the date." But I saw the satisfaction flicker across his face. He thought I was slipping. Good. Let him think that. I did the same with a utility bill. I signed it, then asked him the next day if he'd seen it, claiming I couldn't remember where I'd put it. He produced it from his briefcase like a magician pulling a rabbit from a hat. "Right here," he said gently. "You signed it yesterday." I thanked him profusely, acting embarrassed. Each little error was a test. Each reaction told me how far he was willing to push. During conversations about the house, I planted questions designed to draw him out. Do you think the deed needs updating? I'd ask casually over dinner. What if something happens to me? How would that work? Justin would lean in, voice soft and reasonable. We should probably look at a power of attorney, just to make things easier for everyone. I nodded slowly, as if considering it, while my phone hidden in my lap recorded every word. The family dinner came a week later. Elena insisted on hosting it in the dining room to bring everyone together. My parents arrived early, carrying a bottle of wine and forced smiles. Justin cooked steaks on the grill outside, the smell drifting through the open windows. I wheeled myself to the table, letting my movements look more labored than they actually were. We ate quietly at first. Small talk about the weather, the garden, the neighbors. Then Elena turned to me with that same concerned look she'd perfected. Sis, how are you feeling lately? You seem tired? I shrugged. Some days are better than others. Justin set down his fork. We've been talking about long-term care. There's a facility in Providence, very good reputation. Professional staff. They specialize in recovery situations like yours. It might take some pressure off Elena and me. My parents looked at each other. Mom spoke first. We just want you safe, Victoria. The house is big. It's a lot for one person. I kept my face neutral. You think I can't manage it? Dad cleared his throat. It's not that. It's practical. Elena says you've been forgetting things. We don't want you overwhelmed. Elena reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We're family. We want to protect you. I let the silence stretch. My phone was recording under the tablecloth. I asked the question I'd prepared: if I did need help, who would decide what happens to the house? Justin answered smoothly. Power of attorney would let someone act on your behalf. It's standard. Protects everyone. I nodded as if agreeing. I see. The rest of the meal passed in small talk. I smiled. I thanked them for caring, and inside, I felt the pieces falling into place. That night, I called a local attorney in Newport, Margaret Klein, recommended by a former colleague. I explained the situation without emotion: possible financial manipulation, concerns about capacity, need for asset protection. She listened carefully. An irrevocable trust could work, she said. You transfer the property title into the trust, you name yourself as trustee and sole beneficiary during your lifetime. Rhode Island law strongly protects irrevocable trusts from guardianship claims and creditor actions, as long as the transfer isn't fraudulent conveyance. Once funded, the property is no longer in your personal name, it's in the trust's name. No court can easily override that structure without proving undue influence or incapacity at the time of creation. I asked about timing. How soon can we draft it? 2 weeks if we move quickly. You'll need to sign in front of witnesses and a notary, and you'll retain full control as trustee. Buy, sell, manage as long as you're competent. I told her to prepare the documents. I would come to her office when ready. The next day, Elena cornered me in the hallway. Mom and Dad are worried. They think you need more support. Justin's been looking into options. I looked at her calmly. What options? A power of attorney? Just in case. You know, for emergencies. I pretended to think. I'll consider it. She smiled, relieved. That's good. We just want to help. My parents signed the power of attorney form Justin prepared the following week. They did it quietly in the living room while I was resting in my room. Elena told me later casually, as if it were no big deal. Mom and Dad thought it was smart. For your protection. They believed they were protecting the family. They believed Elena when she said I was declining. They believed Justin when he said he was only trying to help. They weren't cruel. They were manipulated, and that hurt worse than any insult. But I had the trust documents ready. I had recordings of every conversation. I had copies of the power of attorney they signed. And I had the knowledge that once the trust was funded, the mansion would be untouchable. No guardianship, no forced sale, no creditor claims against me personally. They thought they were closing in. They had no idea I had already moved the finish line. Justin filed the civil suit on a Tuesday morning. I learned about it when Margaret Klein called me from her office in downtown Newport. Her tone was calm but edged with satisfaction. "He's claiming equitable interest in the property," she said. "Says he personally invested in renovations, roof plumbing, landscaping totaling over $120,000. Wants restitution or partial ownership. Filed with the Newport County Superior Court." I asked for the details. She read from the complaint. The exhibits included contractor invoices, payment receipts, all issued to Rivera Construction, LLC, not to Justin personally. The corporate veil was right there on paper. I smiled for the first time in weeks. He just handed us the case. Margaret agreed. Under Rhode Island law, expenditures by an LLC cannot be claimed as personal contributions by its owner. The corporate entity is separate. His attorney should have caught that. This filing is procedurally weak. I asked what came next. She explained the court would likely request proof of funds source of the money bank statements, tax returns for the LLC. If the numbers didn't match, the judge could dismiss or sanction for frivolous filing. I didn't celebrate yet. I forwarded the complaint to Ruth. She responded within the hour. "This is gold. The revenue-profit discrepancy we saw earlier. Now it's part of a court record. I can prepare a referral to IRS Criminal Investigation Division for tax evasion and mail fraud. But let's do it formally through a whistleblower submission." We moved quickly. Ruth helped me draft the complaint anonymous submission detailing the LLC's zero-profit reporting on high-revenue use of residential address without consent and pattern of unpaid debts routed through the company. I attached the screenshots from my earlier search and the court exhibits Justin had filed. Ruth filed it electronically through the IRS whistleblower office. No name attached to me. Just the facts. While that was processing, I sent Margaret the toxicology report Ruth had obtained, the independent lab analysis confirming the benzodiazepine derivative in the coffee samples. Margaret reviewed it carefully. "This strengthens an elder financial abuse claim," she said. "Showing intentional administration of a substance to impair capacity could support a civil action for damages or injunction, and it bolsters any criminal referral. But we need to be strategic. The trust is already in place. The property is protected. Now we wait for their next move." Justin didn't wait long. He started pressing harder. He came to me one afternoon with a new set of documents, updated power of attorney forms, a proposed sale agreement for a portion of the back acreage. "Your parents think it's time to simplify things," he said. "Sign these and we can reduce the maintenance burden. For everyone's sake." I pretended to hesitate. "Let me read them carefully." He left the papers on the table. I photographed every page, then told him I'd review them overnight. The next day, I handed them back unsigned. "I need more time to understand the tax implications," I said. "Maybe talk to my own accountant." His jaw tightened, but he smiled. "Of course. Take your time." Behind the smile, I saw the panic. He was running out of patience. In the following weeks, the pressure mounted. My parents called me into the living room one evening. Mom spoke first. "Elena says you're still struggling. We signed the power of attorney so Justin can help with decisions. It's just temporary." Dad added, "We don't want you stressed." "The house is too much?" I asked calmly. "Did you read what you signed?" They looked at each other. "Justin explained it," Mom said. "It's for your protection." I didn't argue. I simply said, "I appreciate you looking out for me." Then I wheeled back to my room. The IRS responded faster than I expected. A letter arrived, official notice of preliminary inquiry into Rivera Construction, LLC. They requested 3 years of tax returns, bank statements, and explanation for the zero-profit reporting. The letter was addressed to the business at the mansion address. Justin received it. I saw him open it in the kitchen, his face draining of color. He tried to hide it, but I had already seen the envelope. I knew what it meant. Margaret received a copy of the court's scheduling order. The judge had set a hearing for the equitable interest claim. She filed a motion to dismiss attaching the LLC invoices as evidence that the claimed contributions were corporate, not personal. She also requested sanctions for frivolous filing. Justin called his own attorney. I overheard him in the hallway, tense clipped. Fix this. I need that property interest established before the IRS digs deeper. His voice cracked on the last word. I kept collecting. Every email he sent to contractors asking for adjusted invoices. Every text to Elena about speeding things up. Every note he left for my parents reminding them Victoria needs professional care. I saved them all on the encrypted drive. The tension in the house was thick. My parents avoided eye contact. Elena tried to act normal, but her smiles were brittle. Justin paced, more, spoke less. He was unraveling, and I was ready for whatever came next. Ruth arranged the meeting quietly. She chose a small coffee shop in downtown Newport, far enough from the mansion that no one would see Elena leave the house and follow her. I stayed behind, monitoring from my room phone on silent. Ruth texted me when Elena arrived. She's here. Nervous. I'll give her the packet. The packet contained everything Ruth had compiled: the toxicology report showing the benzodiazepine in the coffee samples, copies of the LLC filings, with zero profit on high-revenue screenshots of unpaid contractor liens. The power of attorney. My parents had signed transcripts of the recorded conversations where Justin pushed for nursing home placement and control emails between Justin and subcontractors, requesting backdated invoices. No speculation, just documents. Cold, undeniable facts. Elena read in silence. Ruth told me later that she went pale, page by page. When she reached the toxicology report, her hands started shaking. By the end, tears were streaming down her face. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she whispered, "I thought he was protecting us. I thought we were helping her." Ruth didn't comfort her. She simply said, "You need to decide what you're going to do with this." Elena left the coffee shop alone. Ruth followed at a distance to make sure she got home safely, then texted me. "She's shaken. She knows." That evening, Elena came to my room. She knocked softly, waited for me to say, "Come in." When she stepped inside, her eyes were red, her posture slumped. She closed the door behind her and stood there clutching a folder, the same one Ruth had given her. "I need to talk to you," she said. I gestured to the chair across from me. She sat, hands trembling in her lap. I didn't know she started. Not all of it. He told me the coffee was vitamins. He said the power of attorney was just in case something happened again. He said you were forgetting things, that we had to protect the house for Mom and Dad. I let her speak. I didn't interrupt. He kept saying it was for the family, that you couldn't handle it anymore. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be the one who took care of things. I wanted to prove I could. She opened the folder, flipped to the toxicology report, and pointed at the lab results. This is what he was doing. To you. And I let him. I let him put it in your coffee. I thought it was helping you rest." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at her. "Why did you believe him over me?" She wiped her eyes. "Because he was always there. He made plans. He talked about the future. You were recovering. I thought he was the strong one. I thought I was choosing the right side. I asked the question that mattered. What are you going to do now?" She took a deep breath. "I have to confront him. Tonight. Here. With Mom and Dad in the house. They need to know too." I nodded. "Do it." She stood up. "Will you be there?" "No," I said. "This is your choice. Your conversation. I'll be listening from my room." She left. I wheeled to the hallway door, cracked it open just enough to hear. My phone was recording again, habit now. They gathered in the living room. Elena asked Justin to sit. My parents were already there, confused. Elena didn't waste time. She placed the folder on the coffee table and opened it to the toxicology report. "Read this," she said to Justin. "Then explain why you were drugging my sister." The room went still. Justin stared at the page. His face changed surprise, then calculation, then anger. "This is ridiculous. That's not what it looks like." Elena flipped to the LLC filings. "And this, using our family home as your business address without permission, hiding debts, lying about profits. You told me the company was fine. You told me we were safe." Justin tried to stand. "Elena, calm down. You're upset. Let's talk privately." "No," she said. "We're talking now. In front of Mom and Dad. They signed a power of attorney for you. They thought you were helping. But you were stealing." My mother gasped. Dad leaned forward, eyes wide. "What are you saying?" Elena kept going. "He was going to sell part of the land. He had buyers lined up. He told me it was for our future. But it was for his debts." Justin laughed short, forced. "This is insane. She's making this up." Elena turned to him. "Show me the company records. Right now. On your laptop." He hesitated. Then he walked to the living room desk, opened his laptop and logged in. I could hear the keys clicking. My software installed with Ruth's help weeks earlier was already running in the background. It logged every action. He opened the accounting file, then paused. "It's not loading." Elena stepped closer. "Try again." He clicked refresh. Nothing. He tried another file. Same thing. His face paled. Someone tampered with this. Elena stared at him. "You mean you tried to delete it?" Justin slammed the laptop shut. "This is a setup." That's when I wheeled into the doorway. They all turned. I held up my phone. "I have a copy of everything you just tried to erase. Every keystroke. Every file access attempt. Ruth helped me set it up. It's already backed up off-site." Justin looked at me. Really looked for the first time without the mask. I didn't raise my voice. "You thought you were smart. You thought no one would notice. But I noticed. And now the police will too." I had already dialed the non-emergency line for Newport PD. I told the dispatcher we had evidence of tampering with evidence in an ongoing financial abuse case. They sent 2 officers within 20 minutes. When they arrived, Justin tried to explain. "This is a family misunderstanding." The officers listened to Elena first. She handed them the folder and played the audio from my phone the moment he tried to delete files. They asked for the laptop. Justin refused at first. They explained they could get a warrant. He handed it over. They took statements from everyone. Elena spoke clearly, admitting her role, but explaining how she had been manipulated. My parents sat in stunned silence. When asked if they understood what they had signed, Mom whispered, "We thought it was for her safety." The officers left with the laptop and copies of the documents. They said an investigation would begin immediately. After they were gone, Elena turned to me. "What happens now?" I looked at her. "That's up to you. But I won't pretend this didn't happen. Not anymore." She nodded slowly. "I know." My parents tried to speak. I held up a hand. "Not tonight. I need time." They left the room quietly. Elena stayed a moment longer. "I don't know how to fix this." "You can't fix it," I said. "You can only choose what you do next." She left too. The house was silent again. I wheeled back to my room, locked the door, and sat in the dark. The weight of what had happened pressed down, but for the first time I didn't feel alone in it. The truth was out. The pieces were moving. And whatever came next, I was ready. The federal indictment came faster than any of us expected. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Rhode Island charged Justin Rivera with multiple counts tax fraud for willfully underreporting income and fabricating zero-profit statements on Rivera Construction LLC mail fraud for using the mansion address to receive official correspondence intended to shield him from creditors' elder financial abuse under federal guidelines for intentionally impairing Victoria Murphy's decision-making capacity through substance administration and tampering with evidence for attempting to delete digital records during an active investigation. The case was too strong for plea negotiations to soften the outcome significantly. Justin appeared in federal court in Providence 3 months after the police seized his laptop. He wore a suit that no longer fit quite right. The months of stress had taken their toll. His attorney argued for leniency, citing family pressure and lack of prior record. The prosecutor presented the evidence methodically: the toxicology report, the LLC filings showing consistent zero profit despite millions in revenue, the recorded attempts to delete files, the power of attorney signed under false pretenses. The judge listened without interruption. When sentencing came, Justin received 8 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release, and was ordered to pay restitution in excess of $450,000 to creditors and back taxes to the IRS. Before the final hearing, the prosecutor made one last offer: complete waiver of any claim to the Newport mansion in exchange for a recommendation to the lower end of the guidelines. Justin signed the document in the courthouse holding room. His signature was small, shaky, nothing like the confident flourish he once used on business checks. Margaret Klein witnessed it. The mansion was safe. Forever. My parents came to see me the day after the sentencing. They sat in the living room, hands folded tightly in their laps. Mom spoke first. "We didn't know, Victoria. Not the full extent. We thought we were protecting the family." Dad looked down at the floor. "Elena told us you were struggling." Justin said the documents were routine. We trusted them. I listened. I didn't interrupt. When they finished, I spoke quietly. "You signed away my rights without asking me. You stood silent at Elena's wedding when she humiliated me. You believed the version that was easiest for you to believe." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We're sorry. We love you." I nodded slowly. "I know you do. But love isn't enough when it comes with excuses. I forgive you for my own peace. But I can't pretend nothing happened. I can't go back to Sunday dinners and holiday gatherings as if none of this touched me." Dad asked, "What does that mean?" "It means distance," I said. "I'll be here if there's a real emergency. Medical, legal, whatever, requires my presence. But regular contact, no. Not for a while. Maybe not ever in the way it used to be." They didn't argue. They just sat there, smaller than I had ever seen them. When they left, the house felt quieter but not empty. For the first time in months, it felt like mine again. Elena called a week later. I answered. Her voice was small. "I wanted to tell you I'm leaving Newport. I'm moving to Boston. I need space to figure out who I am without him." I asked if she was okay. She said she was trying. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said. "I just wanted you to know I'm sorry, and I'm trying to make different choices now." I told her I heard her. I told her I hoped she found what she was looking for. Then I ended the call. The trust documents were finalized shortly after. Margaret filed the last paperwork with the Rhode Island Secretary of State. The mansion's title now rested in the irrevocable trust with me as sole trustee and beneficiary. No guardianship court could touch it. No creditor could claim it. No family member could force a sale. It was protected legally, permanently. I walked the grounds alone one evening. The bay was calm, the air cool with the first hint of fall. I thought about the generations who had lived here before me. My great-grandfather who built it. My grandfather who expanded it. My parents who inherited it and passed it to me. They had all made choices. Some good, some flawed. Now it was my turn. I had once believed blood was unbreakable. That family meant automatic loyalty, automatic forgiveness. I had believed that even when it hurt, even when it betrayed, the tie was too strong to sever. But blood doesn't protect you. Choices do. My parents chose convenience over confrontation. Elena chose trust in the wrong person over trust in her sister. Justin chose greed over integrity. I chose differently. I chose to see the patterns. I chose to document them. I chose to protect what was mine, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. I chose distance, not hatred. I chose truth over comfort. And that choice set me free. The house stands as it always has, solid quiet overlooking the water. It no longer feels like a burden or a target. It feels like a beginning. I still think about them sometimes. My parents aging in their own home nearby. Elena starting over in Boston. Justin serving his sentence. I don't wish them harm. I don't wish for revenge. I simply wish for them what I have found the courage to choose better next time. Because family isn't defined by shared DNA, it's defined by shared actions. By who stands beside you when the world is watching, and who stands against you when no one is. I stand for myself now, and that is enough.